Okay, so we're in week 5, and I just pushed publish, so if you refresh your screen, you can follow along with me. And some of these pictures might not show up for you, but I will reload them. I didn't have enough time to make sure they were all good. And so we're going to be talking about how to support language, music, art, how to support those learning domains tonight. And so I always put this in my classes. This is some child-directed learning. So do you see the difference? And I think I can spotlight myself here. There's new features on Zoom now. Focus. So do you guys just see me in the big one now? Is that easier for you? Okay. All right. So this picture is in a preschool room, and so these preschoolers are the ones who decided what they wanted to hang up. And the teachers let them. And it turns out that they don't put it crooked. I mean, they don't put it straight, and nothing matches, and that's okay. And so in child-directed environments, it's not going to be shiny and pretty. It's going to look like this. All right. And especially with toddlers, if they put it up themselves, they don't pull it down. So that is a big battle with toddler rooms. The toddlers pull everything off the wall, the babies and toddlers. But if they're the ones putting it up, they don't pull it down. So I added the recording from last year because it's really good. It's got, we're showing a picture and we're writing a learning story together. And so that's coming up. And so this week, this is some of the stuff that's included. And something different about this week is since it's Thanksgiving week and we've got some holiday days off, I don't want you to do homework this week. I want you to relax, renew. That's part of breaking down white supremacy culture, is that we take the rest that we need. And I want to encourage you all to take the rest that you need. And so everything's going to be due Sunday, but you know how nothing's late in my class anyway? I don't want you to push yourself this week. I want you to take the rest you need to stay healthy. Okay? And where else? So everything, like I said, everything's due on Sunday. I changed all the due dates to Sunday. Okay? Everything's got changed to Sunday. I'm also doing, there's no Zoom on Friday. I moved it to Sunday. Okay, I really want you guys to rest. I don't want you to be worried about this class during your vacation. Let me move myself out of here. Okay? All right. And there's your links. See, I still have to add these links back in. They're linking to the wrong things. And those, I have to make sure. So I did one for math and language. And I put them in, in here. And so you'll see them. These are the books. And you should know those already, but this is just a reminder. This is from the guidelines from the Framework Book, Volume 2. These are the guiding principles for perceptual and motor development. And that's what we want to remember when we're designing curriculum. And then this picture, I always put in here. And this is to show you, you see how they're playing with 1,000 blocks. That's one reason why I use this picture. And another one is, you might not be able to tell, but one of those children is special needs. And so I want you to remember the special needs children benefit from too many blocks and 1,000 everything. And some children might be overwhelmed by all those choices. And so I want you to individualize and do it on a case by case thing, okay? So I don't want you to think, oh, that's a special needs child. They can't handle all those blocks. I want you to go child by child. And that's from Anji Play, from Anji, China. And then this is from a preschool room where I was a coach. And they're doing some science there. That's osmosis. You guys know about osmosis? Let me see if I can make it bigger. No, this is as big as I can do it. So let me see if that, no, that just makes it worse. How about that? There. So the teacher put 5 cups, and 3 of them had the primary colors. So 1 was blue, 1 was yellow, and 1 was red. And then the two middle, the alternating cups had plain water. And then they put the paper towels in each one. And so osmosis, the color went into the other cups and mixed. So you see what I mean? And I've done this with babies, and they don't understand the osmosis part, but what they do, what they can see, what that shows is, I usually do it, with celery and colored water for babies, and then you can show how the celery is drinking the water. That's a concrete way to show very young children how plants get water, because they can see the color moving through the celery. And so they don't necessarily get the osmosis part, but they can see the color going into the plant. And so that's a great science thing. You just put it out there and say, oh, I wonder what's going to happen today. I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder what it's going to look like tomorrow. You see how I didn't tell them? I didn't give them the answer. So our job as grown-ups is what we teach children how to solve their own problems and how to find their own answers. That's what we're teaching. We're teaching the inquiry part. Okay, so there's a section on language. This is a great video about how children learn language. And that's in there for you. And I put the DRDP for infants and toddlers, and then the preschool one. And you can see the difference there. There's a lot more for older children because they're talking. And these language domains, I think I mentioned it a little bit last week, they focus on any kind of language unless it says English. And so there's a couple of them that say something about English. And so I've got an example of how you can integrate supporting language, how you can support language in the daily routine. Oh, this isn't going to let me do it. Right there, this is a preschool room, and they sign in the morning. Usually you do this in the spring in a preschool room when they're a little bit older. And so there's a clipboard for each primary group because the children are separated into color groups. This room happens to have colors for each group. And so they're signing in their primary group. And so they're practicing writing their name. And the sticks in the cups have their name written. So if they need to, they take the stick out and they put it on the paper and they copy what they see, their letters for their names. A lot of times teachers want to put dotted lines and yellow and forget it. No. You want them to do it on their own. Give them what they need to solve their problem. And so there's a way. And then also you see there's a list on the table. This happens to be the orange table. And so they've got their names written there permanently on the table so they can write it down whenever they want. You guys have any questions about that? I'm trying to give you some real life examples of how to put this stuff into practice. Whoops. And my thing isn't working here. There. Okay, this next example I've got, she was in, when I was a director, this is one of the preschoolers did this. So in this classroom, they thought a lot about spelling things and writing things and categorizing things. And so this child did this at home and she brought it back to school. And so what she did was she got a bean, a bunch of beans and lentils and things. And so if this is just how you play all day, they go home and they do the same thing at home. And so she glued the bean or the lentil or whatever on the piece of paper and then wrote the word, and it was creative spelling. And so you want to help them think of the sound. So they say, okay, lentil, okay, l. What is the L sound? And so she put an L. And so you have to work through each one. And so this took a long time to do. And you see that she doesn't know how to write in straight lines yet, so it's just kind of all over, and that's fine. And you see that the teacher wrote a couple of them that she didn't write in. The popcorn and the pinto bean didn't get written in. And you see how the H is backwards. And so it's all good. They're 3 years old. This is great. So you don't want to correct them. You just want to go with it and support what they're doing. And so when children maybe they get their grammar wrong, you can repeat it with the right grammar. You don't make them repeat it. You just restate it in the right grammar. And so all of that is in the framework books. And so this part was a preschool. So if you open your framework book to the language section, it's yellow like this, language and literacy. You're going to get information like that to not correct children when they talk, when they make mistakes with their grammar. Okay. Thanks for letting me know, Nancy. All right. So here's an example from when I was a coach. And this is in a toddler room. They are between 1 and 2 years old. And so this is what I had the students last year help me write this learning story. And you see how I covered up the face? So if you're taking pictures of children, of real children and not stock image children, you can just put something over their face and it'll be okay. All right, so we don't want to distribute pictures of children unless you have permission. Okay? And so these toddlers were just messing around in the reading area, and so we wrote this thing. So why the intention is, why would we make these books available to these children? Why are books in a toddler room? That's the intention. Okay, so we said we wanted to make books and reading an all-day choice for the children. That's the intention. That's why they're on the shelves and available to the children. Even though they can't read, we know they can't read, but we want this to be an all-day choice for the children. And so that's what the intention says, right? And then the observation. So this is pretty short because you guys are writing a little bit longer because this is a class and we're learning. But in general, you just want to write what you observe, that you want to focus on, a specific part of the day or a specific experience that the children had, or a specific thing that they learned about that day is what goes in the observation part. When you're a teacher and you're just doing this all the time. So in this example, we say, I saw you kneeling on the floor and turning the pages of the book. You were very close to your friend. When you stopped looking at the book, you put it on the floor next to you. Very simple, matter of fact, right? And that's what observations are. It's just what we see with nothing extra, no background knowledge. None of that goes in the observation section. Okay? And then the what it means to me part is when we connect what we just saw with what we know about how children learn. And so we saw kneeling on the floor. That's gross motor manipulative. That's the full name of the measure from the DRDP. These are toddlers. They're 18 months old. That's why I'm always on you about your context, because children under 3 need the infant toddler DRDP, and children over 3 need the preschool DRDP. And the names of the measures are different, and some of them aren't included in one or the other. So if you're just making stuff up from being a teacher, you're going to mess it up if you're looking at toddlers. It's going to go wrong. So be sure that the DRDP you're using matches the ages of the children that you're observing. Okay? So the next one, looking at books. That's interest in literacy. Sitting next to the friend. That's relationships and social interactions. And so if you think about, if you keep the measures in the back of your head while you're observing these children, you can write down things that you see that you know speaks to a specific DRDP measure. So because I know what the measures are, I saw them sitting close together and I wrote that down in my observation. You sat next to the child. You're sitting. That's a gross motor manipulative, right? And so there's others for walking, that locomotive. We didn't do the locomotive one because they didn't move anywhere. Okay, where are we here? Put book on the floor. That's fine motor manipulative because they're using their hands, right? Do you guys see any other measures that might be there? Now I haven't memorized the infant toddler one, but there might be one in the language section about not talking yet and using gestures instead. I'm not sure, but it might be in there. And so this might count for not talking because nobody's talking, right? And so that's the very low end of the DRDP, right? When they're little babies, they don't talk. And so just take a look at the DRDP. Oh, it's in later. It's in later in opportunities and possibilities. So it says tomorrow. This is the part. This is your discussion homework is like this, right? Opportunities and possibilities section. Tomorrow I'll bring out some more books about ducks. That's understanding of language receptive. Because I'm gonna read some books about ducks. I'm gonna bring out books about. Then I'll get out bookmaking supplies and encourage you to tell me your own story. So I guess that's about as directive as you can be. Encourage. You can encourage somebody. And then I say, tell me your own story. So I'm not going to encourage you to tell me where the ducks came from the book. I'm not going to encourage you to answer questions about the book, right? Because that turns into adult directed. But I'm going to encourage you to make up a whole story. All about, it could be about ponies. Whatever comes out of your mouth, I'm going to write it down. Okay? And then we can put it on the shelves with the other books so that your friends can read it too. Interest in literacy. So do you see how that went together? How you don't really tell them what to do, but you set everything up so that they can have a productive learning experience without telling them what to do. And this is pretty high level for a 1-year-old to make up a story and make a book for themselves. And so their part is telling a story, and then your part as the adult is putting the book together and putting it on the shelf. Maybe they help you push on the stapler when you're stapling it together. Maybe you pre-cut the pages and make the books ahead of time, and they color the pages they want to color, and they tell you what to say on each page of the book. So toddlers, you do as much, the things that they're too little to do, you do them, and they do the rest. You guys have any questions about that one? Okay. Let me see here. Whoops. And that's the same thing there. And then this is the video on how we put that together. Wait, did I miss one? No, it's coming. Okay. And then here's the math section. So here's the infant toddler math things from the DRDP. And I've got some more examples of some examples on how to set up for COVID. And I don't know if I showed you these already. These are from the coaches at First Five San Francisco. They gave us these ideas, and these come from the Montessori framework. Very simple toddler things. And you put those trays out, and the toddlers decide if they're going to play or not. And then here is the manipulative area in a toddler room. So you don't necessarily have to have a lot of things on the shelf. And sometimes it can be overwhelming for very young children. Okay, what else is here? There's another math one. Or this counts as language and literature because those are letters. And you don't expect them to know those letters. We're just having, they call it a print-rich environment where you have a lot of them around and you talk about them a lot, but you don't expect them to be able to name everything. We're just including them in our everyday. And so that's some contact paper, and it's sticky, and so they just hang out with those letters. There's the math section for the preschool DRDP, and you see it's got a lot of stuff. What comes up a lot is problem solving. A lot of you put problem solving in your learning stories. There is no problem solving DRDP measure. So you guys can't fake this. You've got to look at the thing or it's not going to work. And colors is not a DRDP measure. So just be aware. So here's some videos on interactions and how you can interact with children to support learning in math. And so there's some great ideas in these videos. And what is here? And this was from one of my classes at City College in Chinatown. And there's a DRDP measure about math and how many they're stacking on top of each other is significant in their development. And so I always take this picture and show you guys. And what's interesting about this is this student separated it by colors. So she's got a red tower, an orange one, a blue one, a green one, a yellow one. And another thing she did is she topped each one with a square one. And so this is a child. I can't try not to say kid. She's ready for kindergarten. She's pretty far ahead. She did all of this without anybody telling her to do it. She just decided to do that one day. So I always like to, that's a great example of categorization. That's a really hard one to see children do naturally. And so here's an example of it. And here's another example of categorization. And they were just playing and this happened. And so I took a picture. This is at City College in the preschool lab school. And just one of them got all the yellow buckets and is playing with the yellow buckets. And so it's kind of hard to change the way you think about children. So we are just there to observe and describe what we see them doing. And if there's something you want to know about, you just ask them, wow, I see a whole bunch of buckets. Did you guys notice those are all yellow? You can just say it like that. I see so many yellow buckets. Is yellow your favorite color? See, now they know what yellow is. And you didn't stop and say, yellow buckets. Repeat after me, yellow buckets. So you don't have to do that. You can just talk with them. Okay. And these are from a math training I went to. And again, these are all something about in a preschool room. you're supposed to have a math area and a science area. And I don't know if you still have this in COVID. They may have changed things. So these count as math or science, right? Depending on what DRDP measures you're focusing on. But when it's in the science area, you have to have a book. That's part of the expectations. That's why there's a book here. So I shouldn't say that's an expectation. It's an indicator of quality to have a book that supports whatever activity is out. So when you set up these things, it's called a provocation because we're provoking the learning. We're provoking the exploration of something. We're inspiring them to go look and see what's there and explore this stuff. So it's called a provocation. And so that's what we're practicing. We're learning about how to set up provocations that that get children to want to learn something new or experiment with something or solve a problem. And so these were designed for the math area, or these were designed to support the math learning domain. They're designed to support math in young children. So you see, there's no directions on what to do. No one's telling them what to do. But this is what you as a teacher set up. This is how you can set it up. So maybe they can infer things that might be exciting for them. And so this teacher set up a little pathway with the counting cubes. You don't have to do it that way. These are just examples. You can do whatever you want in your classroom. But these things support learning in math. These are some interesting ways to set it up. You see the tray here is not a bright color. That helps a lot if you're not adding too many bright colors to your room because it's sensory overload. So I remember when I was taking these classes, they said the children and their art are the only things that should be decorating a room. Just the children and their art. So everything else should be muted colors. Nothing bright. No bright walls, no bright curtains, no bright borders around bulletin boards. You want to have muted colors because it's a lot of sensory overload. And they haven't developed, and you'll learn this in the growth and development class, but they haven't developed the filters to filter it out like an adult would. And so they need our help to provide that carefully prepared environment that I keep talking about. And so that's why I always point out these trays are neutral colors. And sometimes if you want to emphasize a certain thing, you can put something under it like a mirror. That's what that is there. And so what else is here? Here's the video on another learning story that the class did together last year. It's really good. And so this is what we came up with. And so that's another thing we talk about a lot, co-creating. Did you guys read about that in the book? Talk about co-creating or inquiry. Whenever we're talking about inquiry or co-creating, it means we're both learning together. And so the whole class and me, we co-created this learning story. So I took these pictures when I was a coach, and this is a toddler room, and the background is that this is nap time. So no one's in their bed, and they're supposed to be going to sleep. That's the background. And this can really stress out new teachers if they're supposed to be putting these toddlers to sleep and no one's in their bed. Okay, so they're playing games. They're all squishing underneath the slide. And they're having a good time. They think they're living on the edge of danger because they're breaking all the rules and they're not going to sleep. And so they're just having a good time. And so we wrote a story about that, right? I wanted a place where they could safely practice their gross motor locomotive skills inside the classroom. That's why that slide is in the room, so they can practice their gross motor locomotive skills. So the intention does not have to match what you observe. I think that worries a lot of people. The intention does not have to match what you see the children doing. So they did not go up and down the slide like they were supposed to. And the reason why we put the slide there, they did something completely different. And that's okay to have in your learning story. They don't have to match. Because you're just recording what happens, right? So they say, I saw you crawl under the slide and sit next to your friends. You looked at me from under the slide and smiled. Then you looked back at your friends. You crawled out and stood up. You looked back at your friends and smiled again. See how simple that is? Now for this class, I'd make you write more, but we're just trying to figure out learning stories, right? And so again, I've got the measures in the back of my head. And so I'm noticing that the child's moving their whole body. So I have something in about gross motor locomotive. I have the child looking at me and interacting with the other children. And so I write a sentence about that. And so what it means to me, that's the part where we're connecting what we just observed with what we know about how children learn. So you crawled in and sat next to your friends. That's spatial relationships. So this was last week's homework, right? Where we had to pick one and then make an opportunity possibility. So, okay, you looked at me, relationships and social interactions. You looked at your friends, that's relationships and social interactions with peers. You stood up, that's gross motor manipulative. So gross motor manipulative is just when they're standing or sitting. When they're moving their body somewhere, that's the locomotive part, right? Okay, opportunities, possibilities. This is a typo. It looked like you were really having fun under the slide. So that's the I noticed part, right? I noticed this. I noticed you were having fun under the slide. So tomorrow, I'll bring out the tunnels during free play time and see if you will enjoy exploring the tunnels as much as you enjoyed the slide. I'm not going to tell you to go through the tunnels. I'm just going to put it out during free play. And so when you use a tunnel, they're going to be working on their spatial relationships. They're going to see how they fit in that tunnel. That's in the cognitive learning domain. Oh, and it might even be math too. Do you think you and all your friends will be able to fit inside the tunnel? That is an open-ended question. There's no right. I didn't say, I'm going to put you all in the tunnel. I'm going to have you all get in the tunnel. Did I say that? I just said, I wonder. Do you think you'll all fit? I wonder. Relationship, social interactions with peers. Okay, next week, I will bring in some cardboard boxes so that we can build houses. Spatial relationships. So if you just did that one, I would say, I wonder what you will choose for your house. I wonder how many doors you're going to put on it. I wonder how many windows, whatever. Is it going to look just like your house at home? I don't know. We can decorate them with paint also, and that's fine motor manipulatives. Okay, any questions about that one? Can you guys think of another one that you see in these pictures that we could add? I think I would add a gross motor locomotive about him going back and forth. And I might try to quote the child. If they were giggling or laughing, I might quote whatever they said or did and add that one. So the way you really maximize this as a teacher in the classroom is you write. So right now we just did this child, right? But if you described what this child is doing and what this child is doing, or one in the back, now you got 3. And if you have something that each child did and said, you can, after this is finished, you can photocopy it and put it in each portfolio and use it for each child's DRDP. And so one learning story is going to help 3 children's assessments. So as a teacher, you have to do one for every child in your primary group. So this one could fit 3 depending on how you write it. That's how you save time and energy. And then another way to save time and energy is maybe tomorrow 3 different children are giggling underneath the slide and going back and forth. You can write up this same story with the other children and what they did, but you already have all of these DRDP measures chosen, and you can just use those again. And so you don't have to do that extra work over and over because you already did it, right? So don't make extra work for you if you don't have to. Okay, visual art. Visual art is a little bit different between infants and toddlers and preschoolers. So yes, infants and toddlers do visual art. It is not it's not an expectation for quality that they do art. So they say it's all or nothing. So if you're going to be doing art with children under 3, there are expectations for quality. But if you don't, then you don't do any at all. It's an all or nothing. But preschool, it is expected and required for high quality environments to have open-ended art time. That means the children choose what they do, what they use, and then they choose what they do with that stuff that they chose. That is art in a preschool room. They need access to supplies all day, and they need to be able to decide what to do with those supplies. Now, that doesn't mean that's the only way they have art in your classroom. But if you want to be considered a high quality environment, they need access to art supplies all day, and they need to be allowed to do something with those, whatever they want. Okay? So what happens a lot, teachers will set something up. They'll get out paper colors that they want them to use. They get out the paint colors they want them to use. And they say, do what you want. And they think that they're doing art with children, and you're not. The minute you decide what paper they're going to use and what paint they're going to use or anything, it's no longer a child-directed art. It's no longer considered art. It could be considered an art activity, but as far as the assessment tool is concerned, that is not art in their minds because the grown-ups did the choosing. So that's why I go over and over with you guys about adult-directed versus child-directed, because you've got to be real clear about what you're doing with the children in the classroom. Let me move this over a little bit. Okay, any questions about that? No? Okay, trying to get this there. All right, so this is what's in the principles and the framework books. So if you want ideas on how you can support art in your classroom that will support those learning domains, they're here. This is what you got to remember about children. Arts are for all children, and anyone can make art, and they're the ones creating their own meaning through the art. That's why they get to choose, and they can make anything they want in any form they want. And what's another one in here? And for preschoolers, it's about the process more than the product. So you don't want to put the emphasis on the end product, because for this age, it's about the process. Okay, so keep that in mind as they're creating things. This is a 2-year-old activity there. These are the DRDP measures. Here's another 2-year-old room right here. All of that. That's the same classroom. So here's the before, and here is the after. They took a couple of days to do that. And so it's just out and available all day to 2-year-olds. Let that sink in. A 2-year-old had access to this big mess all day. And that just drives new teachers crazy. But that is a high quality environment. Okay, I've got some more examples of what you can do for COVID. And so this teacher, she put a baggie with enough for one child to do an activity and a bunch of trays, and they put them in this cart, this crate. And you can see what's in it. This is from the coaches again. So each child got their own paint and markers and some foam pieces and some paper for bookmaking. This is a preschool room. And they've got their name in it. So each child has their own baggie of stuff, and the teacher gets this ready. So remember I showed you the bin last time, the Hey Did You Know? So this teacher uses baggies instead of bins. Guys have any questions? And this is so that nobody shares anything anymore. That's the part I don't like about COVID. Oh, no more sharing. Okay, dramatic play, social dramatic play. In high quality environments, they get to do this kind of, you want to, in the yard should mirror the classroom. So you should have almost exactly the same access to activities outside as you do inside. So the yard is not just for playing on the play structure. They should have materials set out for them so that they can choose other activities besides the play structure. And so in this instance, they're doing some dress up. So you should have dress up, you should play kitchen, all of it. Now, you don't necessarily want a kitchen outside. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a campfire or whatever. But you have those same elements outside. You have books so they can read everything. And again, this is City College, the preschool room. Okay, where am I here? This is a 2-year-old room. Sometimes children just like to lie on the floor while they're playing. And sometimes that bothers people. They want them to sit at a chair at a table. And so they will go and they will interrupt these children and make them take the toys to a table. So just let them be. This is not COVID time. This is pre-COVID. That's why they're right next to each other like that. It might be different because of COVID. But generally in a regular room, this is what happens sometimes. They just lie down and they are concentrating. They're doing a lot of learning. That's why they can be so close to each other and not be fighting. That's how involved they are with their learning. Any questions? So if you were writing a learning story about this, we would say we added these streets and cars to the block area to support block play. That's the intention, right? And then the observation would be, I saw you put the pieces of the street together and you made a very long street with the blocks. Or you can even count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. You put 4 pieces together. Because counting or adding more and more counts as number sense in the math domain. And then you can say, you were looking at the ramps and concentrating for a long time. Your friend bumped into you, but you didn't turn around and say anything. And then, so what do you think would be the what it means to me part? You could say, you laid down on the carpet and stretched out your whole body. Gross motor manipulative. You moved the wooden street around. Fine motor manipulative. Somebody bumped into you. That is self-control of emotions and behavior. That's a preschool measure, right? So we have to know how old they are. It's not on the infant toddler one. These guys didn't talk, but you see where I'm going with this? So when you're new, you look at every measure and you decide if it's in there after you write your observation. Okay, so now we're going to move over to possibilities, opportunities, and possibilities. So let's say, wow, you had so much fun yesterday playing with the blocks in the car ramps. Tomorrow, I'm gonna bring in a big long piece of wood so you can have a longer ramp and you can make a taller ramp. I wonder what's going to happen with a taller ramp. So you can say what you're bringing so that they can have it. I said, so you can have it. I wonder what's going to happen. You see the difference? And so I'm looking at what they're really interested in, and I'm thinking of another activity that's going to be just as interesting because I know they're interested in that. If I said tomorrow I'm going to bring in some plants to add to the side of the street, do you think that would be very interesting to them? The way you could tell is if in your observation you heard him say, "Oh, look, there's a tree over here, and I'm putting in another tree. Here's another tree. Look at the line of trees along the street." If they talk like that, then I might bring more trees for the block area. But if they're talking about, oh, they're going down the hill, woo, because most boys will do that, woo, down the hill, right? Then I'm going to bring more down the hill stuff tomorrow, right? Whatever they're interested in, that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. And I'm going to build on it. And I'm going to support the learning. I'm going to support the sophistication of the play. Okay, so you see the difference? How you can go in two different ways from the same thing that you observe, depending on what the child is doing. Do I have to stay in the block area with my plan? Very good. Very good, you guys. Yay, you're getting it. That's right. That's right. And so what could be an activity to support this that you could do that's not in the block area? What do you think? No ideas? I can't hear you. Observing well, here, let me give you another example. What activity would you plan for the children to support what they're doing in this picture that is not connected to the block area? Because we observe them playing in the block area. So what could we plan for tomorrow because we know they like playing with this ramp? I'm thinking maybe out in the yard, I would do something with water. I might set up something in the sensory bin with water and put some big boards out there that go across the sensory bin so they could have a street that goes over the water. And then they go, oh no, and then that falls in the water. I could see that happening. But how I would describe it is, oh, tomorrow I'm going to set up some more places for your cars to go, more streets for your cars. I wonder what kind of street you'll make. I'll make one outside so we can play with the water too. And then I'll list them. Social dramatic play. Um, I don't know. And then I'll say, should we put boats out too? I might add boats. I don't know. But that's how you can do it. And then the next day, when you do that one, you observe that and you see what they do with the next activity. And so as you write these stories, you put them right next to each other, right? Every couple days, you do put the next one up. And that's your project. That's project-based learning. You got a project now because you're showing their change in how they're learning. You're showing how the development is progressing over time. And now you know how to document a project. Just each day you do the next part of the project. Okay? And it's say that again? For your own personal project, is that what you're saying? So for this class, you're just writing the one learning story. So it's not even a project really, it's just one thing that happened. But in general, if you're learning, if you're asking about projects as a subject, project work with children or inquiry work, we like to call it, you're helping children solve a problem. And so sometimes it could take one day, sometimes it could take a year. It just depends on how deep you want to go and how involved you want to get and how interested the children are. Because it's really all about the children and their interests. And if they're really interested in it, you could do it for a long time. I coached some teachers who did a mud project, and they did mud for 3 months. In general, teachers for big projects like that, and you could have more than one project going at a time, but usually, in general, most teachers have a project go for a certain amount of months. But if you're going to do a big formal project like that, there's usually a letter to the parents before you start, and then you do all the project work, and then you have an event at the end of your project for the children to show what they learned and to share with the parents what they learned. A formal event, kind of. And that actually is one of the DRDP measures in the preschool DRDP, about sharing the inquiry work and the results of their inquiry. And that's what you do. You have the children get up and talk about how they they um, they did the cars in the classroom. So the kids would talk like this. They said, we played with the cars in the classroom, and then here we played with the cars outside in the water, and they kept falling in. So we made our so we made our street bigger. We added another piece of wood, and then our cars didn't fall in the water anymore. And so the children are telling the story of how they did learn, how they learned. And so that is again, I'm going to say it again and again, that's an indicator of quality, that children are solving a problem and then sharing with others how they solved their problem. And it could be very simple with like, my pencil kept making a hole in my paper. And so I looked around the room and I saw the markers, and I tried the markers and it didn't rip my paper. And so then I just colored this with markers instead. It could be as simple as that for your DRDP measures. But if you're talking about a real project, and you call it a project, then that's when you have a letter to the parents, and then you do all the experiments, and then you have the ending of the event. And that's a whole nother class. What I'm doing with you in this class is I'm laying the foundation so that you have the skills to do a project later if you so choose. I'm giving you all the pieces, and then in another class you put it together. Or you put it together, your coach. If you work in a subsidized program, the coach can help you with the rest, but you have this base layer now and you're ready. Because it's an introductory, right? It's not, you're not going to be experts. Okay, any other questions about that? No? Okay. Here's the infant toddler visual and so visual and performing arts is really a preschool word, but I put the infant stuff in here as well. It's called something else. But there's a little video about how infants and toddlers learn. And here is a toddler board. Let me see if I can get it here. Here. Okay, this is in the toddler room at City College. And this is right close to the floor. It's like, you can see where the paper stops is like 8 inches above the floor. This is really low. The infants and toddlers can touch it all. It's not under glass. And so the teachers put up this piece of paper and they taped it on there. And they had the toddlers put it up here. And so the table where they make their art is about 6 feet away. And so you can imagine they're at their table, they're doing their drawings, and it looks like, because they're so little, it looks like the teacher put the tape on the paper and then said, okay, go hang up your art. And then they toddle over, and they stick it on the wall. And you can see some of those are just barely stuck to the wall. They're just barely hanging with one piece of tape. And nobody pulls them off. They stay there all day, every day. No one pulls them off because they are in charge. And so they left them there. And that is advice to all of you who are in the fight to keep the stuff on the wall in an infant toddler room. If you let them put it up, it'll stay up. There's another thing you can do if you put, I've seen a lot of teachers, they put Velcro on stuff and they still take it down. It really has to be from the children if you want it to stay up. If you did some adult directing, it's going to get pulled down. I'm just letting you know. And it's so frustrating because you're supposed to have all this stuff up so you can be high quality, right? They're coming to evaluate you and you can't keep anything on the wall. It's probably because you're controlling it too much. So what's next here? See, here's their table. Lot of stuff, lot of choices. These are babies. Well, they're not, they're 18 months old. The youngest one is 18 months old. And look at all those chokables. So if you're going to do stuff like this, you have to sit there. You can't walk away. If they're under 2, they're still putting stuff in their mouth, you can't walk away. You absolutely have to sit there with them. And so there's 3 things where you have to sit there during the activity. And it's art, eating, sensory table time. Those 3 things. Because that's when they can choke and die on something. Very, very important. You cannot walk away to go get more materials, to go change someone's diaper. You have to stay there. So it's great they had all these choices, but if the assessor was here, it would impact their score. And so now this is me talking about philosophy and what's important. What's important is that they got a lot of choices, right? And you're sitting there and you're not getting up, you're not leaving, you're keeping everybody safe, right? And so maybe you decide to just get a lower score in this area so that the children can have all these choices. And so you decide as a teacher and a team what you're going to do well in and what's important to you for the children's learning. So you can think about that also for how often you're going to make them wash their hands, right? Are you going to interrupt the play to wash their hands? Are you going to are you going to have them wash their hands every time they touch the Play-Doh and walk away? So you just have to decide what's important. Okay. Here's an example of how babies can paint. This baby is about 9 months old. And this really depends on your program. Sometimes they don't let them paint until they turn 1. But you see, got them down to their diapers. And they are in charge of moving their bodies. They're not stuck somewhere. And so this piece of paper, I taped it to, you know those mats that they put under an office chair so it can roll on carpet? That piece of plastic under office chairs? That's what this is. It's a big piece of plastic for office chairs. And I taped a big piece of paper on it. And so when they're done, so you put it out real fast and they paint. And the easiest thing for babies is you either put some paint on the paper and then they do their thing, or you hand them a brush with the paint on the brush when they're real little, and then they do their thing. But you give them practice before you hand them the cup of paint. And so maybe you start with holding the cup next to them, and they don't get to pick it up, but they still can put as much paint as they want on their brush. And then over time, you let them hold the cup themselves, but you only put a tiny bit of paint. And as they get older and better, then you add more and more paint to their cup. Because we're giving them the next step, right? We give them lots of practice, and we do the next step each time so that they can get better and better at this. They can master it, right? And so anyway, so they're painting. These babies are painting. The paint is everywhere. And so when you think it's done, when they're done painting, you can take this board and put it away real fast, and it kind of cuts down the mess. Because you've got all these babies, they're like cats, and they all go in different directions, and they're all covered in paint. And it's pretty stressful as a new teacher when everybody's covered in paint. And so if you put that board away really quick, that's one thing they're not spreading more paint on somewhere, right? And so now you're just down to the 3, because it's a 1-to-3 ratio, right? And so then you only have to like corral 3 that are covered in paint. So that's that. And we did this inside and outside. So an indicator of quality is these activities need to be inside and outside all day if you're in the preschool, and inside or outside every day for infants and toddlers. Inside or outside, infants and toddlers, inside and outside every day for preschool. So here's another example of toddler time. These are older. They're like 14 months old, 15 months old. And so they've graduated to paper on the table. And you see they're standing up. They're not sitting down. A lot of teachers make children sit down. And just to control their bodies, it's easier for them to control everything if they're standing up. So just keep that in mind. And this is a picture I always say, the one on the end. She saw all this paint, and then she said, sunscreen. And then she wiped all the paint all over her body, all over her neck and face. And she said, sunscreen. And she put that paint all over her. That's because every morning she puts her own sunscreen on, and she made a connection. She was generalizing the skill. She's making a connection. That's great. That's conceptual thought when they're making connections like that. And so we go, oh, I see. You've got that paint on just like the sunscreen. And you just have to like hold it together. Just stay cool while they're putting all that paint everywhere. Because it's a learning moment. You don't want to wreck it, right? And these guys have been painting every day since they were crawling. And so now they get cups of paint. They get to hold their own cup. And it's a mess, but there's not very much spilling. There's just like some painting that went off the edge. But there's no big puddles anywhere because they've been doing this a long time. Had a lot of practice. Okay, any questions about that? All right. So I wrote my stories. So here's another story for you guys. So you see this. This is a toddler room. These guys are 1 year old. 1 to 2 years old. That's how old they are in this classroom. And this teacher taped this piece of paper on the floor. This is their project. So this is a long-term project. So they add 1 layer every day. And so today is the blue layer. And they have these cups and sponges that they are stamping on this piece of paper with a blue paint. And the teacher taped the drawing right to the floor. No background for cleanup, no backdrop, just straight on the floor. And she put these plates of paint right on the floor and didn't keep them on the side until she could watch it. This is just a free play activity with toddlers. And that's pretty scary for a new teacher. And there's the aftermath. So it's not too bad, not too bad. because they've had a lot of practice. If you let them practice, they don't spread it everywhere. If they're spreading it everywhere, they're telling you that they need more time with that thing. If they're spreading the paint everywhere, they're telling you they need more sensory experience spreading paint. So something that new teachers don't think about is they go through a stage where they use too much paint, too much glue, too much glitter. You just have to let them do it. They'll use too much tape, too much of everything, and you just have to let them do it. You just have to watch it and just keep it together while they're doing it. You want to describe what you see, and when they get to the end of the tape roll, go, oh, no more tape. What can we do? How can we solve our problem? We'll have to use something different because we used up all the tape. And you just we're just very matter of fact about that natural consequence. When you pull all the tape off the roll, there's no more tape. But it's hard to watch in the moment, right? As they're unrolling the whole thing of tape. But it's all a learning experience. So you want to just keep that in mind when they're doing it. And really talk them through it so the next time they don't have to learn that thing again, right? You guys have any questions about that? So this is considered a project, even though they're not solving a problem. I guess the problem is that they're learning how to work together and work at the same thing over an extended period of time, which isn't really a toddler thing, right? They're very short-sighted. And so that's that. And they got to choose. They get to decide how to create that, right? Okay. And see, it's all empty here. You have to add those pieces. So that's it. You guys have any questions about that? So we talked. Yes. 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 You are right. They are not done yet. I have not reloaded all of them. You are right. You are right. They'll get fixed today. Um, Something's wrong with my computer, and I tried to get it done before our time today, and it didn't happen. Is there anything else besides me reloading all of the pictures and videos? Any other questions? No? Okay. All right. Next, so we have another discussion this week, and this one's about art. And so there's a little video about art and what to do with children. It's a really good one, you guys. Really good. And you got some choices here. You're going to choose what age you're going to be designing this curriculum. Is it toddlers or babies? Or did I say? Yeah, picture A. And then you're gonna I'll read the directions here. Tell me what picture you chose and 2 things you would add or take away based on what you learned about adult intervention. So you're going to look at these pictures and decide if you're going to take something away or add something. And so in the example I gave, I said I chose A, and I would add a tub of soapy water and a few sponges so when the children are finished, they can play with the sponges in the water and clean up the paint on their hands. And in the process, as personal care routines, I would also add pieces of paper and tape so that they can dictate to the teachers what the process was for making their art. And so remember, I was talking about sharing what they learned. That's documentation and communication of inquiry. That's the name of that measure. So when children tell you what to write about their picture, they're documenting and communicating the inquiry that they did. And then for extra credit, you can say you made a great addition to sponges and soapy water, and then you can add another part. You can practice squeezing the water, see more bubbles, cause and effect. So if you want extra credit, you say a PDA about what someone did, and then you add another one based on what that person chose. So that one's about soapy water, and so I wrote an opportunity and possibility about soapy water. You see that? So the homework is I chose a picture and I added soapy water. And so the extra credit is you look at what that person posted and then you pick another one to go with what they posted about. That one's about soapy water, so I added a soapy water possibility. You see that? Any questions? No. And then the last thing we're doing is rough draft. Now I know you guys aren't ready for the rough draft yet. Don't worry, it's going to be okay. So if you like, most of you got a good enough grade to move on to week 3 with the what it means to me section. And most people do pretty well with that assignment. So a lot of you are ready for your rough draft. I say half of you are ready for your rough draft. And so that's where it's going right here. And so you're going to be turning in the what opportunities and possibilities section this time, right? Well, you're turning in the whole thing, but the new part is opportunities and possibilities. So this gives you, so if you used up all 3 of your chances for week 1, you can still work on it, but it's going to be in a different assignment. So you can still work on your observation in week 3 when you're turning in the what it means to me. Okay? So let's say you used your 3 chances and you still got a 40 out of 50, right? So when you are working on, let me roll down here. So when you're turning in week 3, part B, you can include your observation with your next round of trying to get it right. And I'll grade it and so that you can be ready for week 5. You see what I'm saying? If I see a grammar mistake or something, I'll let you know. So when you turn in week 5 rough draft, you'll have that correction too. Do you see what I'm saying? So you'll have a chance to fix your observation section in later weeks. That's why I say for your observation, you basically have 9 tries at it before the final. Because you have 3 for week 2, 3 for week 3, and then 3 for week 5. This is wrong. This should say week 5. I see a mistake right there. I have to fix that. But do you see what I'm saying? We're in week 5, and so you get 3 more tries at that learning story in week 5. You guys, I really appreciate you. Those the second tries at week 2. Wait, is it week 2 or week 1? Week 2. Most of you who resubmitted did a lot better. It's never been that good before. You guys are really, I've never seen such a big improvement. So I was like, yeah, you guys. So yeah, I'm relieved. Yeah, see Arisa, woo. Because I'm working hard with you. I'm with you. And every year I say, okay, should I take this out? Is this just too hard? But by the end, you guys are like, no, don't take it out. I say, okay. But it just kills us all. So I'd be happy, you new people, I'd be happy to hear what you have to say about these learning stories. Okay, so you're literally copying what you did and pasting it in the next one. Week 5 is the whole thing. Here's your example here. It's the whole thing. Okay? It's the whole thing this time, including your 200 words for your observation. The whole thing. So let's say you got it. You got it. That switch flipped in your mind and you got it. So if you get a good grade for this, you're ready for your final. You have 3 weeks to read the book, learn something about curriculum, and just take the pressure off, right? Because you got this done. But if you didn't get it and it's not clicking yet, you still have 3 weeks to get it. Okay, we have 3 weeks to get this right before the final. And you see there's no quiz. And because it's Thanksgiving, this is due on Sunday. But you know, there's no late things for this class, right? Where am I here? We are week 5. Okay. So, are there any questions before I turn off the recording? No? Okay. I do want to say I'm sorry that you guys have been getting email announcements with nothing in them. I thought they were written, and they're not. And so basically, I figured out when I wanted to send them, and then I didn't write them, which was bad. So I sent a real one this week, and there was an assignment that I decided not to give you guys, but someone turned in something, so I couldn't just unpublish it. And so I wrote all over it, don't turn anything in for that one, because I can't unpublish it. And I went and hid it so you guys can't find it, and someone still asked about it. So you don't have to do that one. Just let it go. Just let it go. Just work on what's here, what you can see, and those are the assignments. They're here in the calendar here. That's what you need to do for this week. Okay? Any other questions about that? No? Okay. So I'm going to turn off the recording here. Yes, so I know some of you submitted your assignment, and then before I got to it, you resubmitted something different. And that's okay. And so the computer thinks you turned it in not too many times already, but that's okay. So if I haven't personally graded, if you don't have 3 grades, you can submit it in the comment section. So you see the little tiny paper clip in the comment. That's where you can upload the latest version. Okay? And that's how you can get your 3rd time. And you're not the only one, Elena. More than one of you did that. And I thought, oh, this is, and see, I don't want to unlock it because then everybody will do a 4th one, and it just it shows up that it needs to be graded in my system, and then I keep thinking I need to go back. And so, if you do it this way, I will occasionally go back and check those. The computer doesn't tell me when you upload them. I have to manually go look. And so if you do it that way, can you send me an email so that I know to go look? And in general, if it's good enough, I'll say you can just go to the next one now. Or if it's the 3rd one, I'll say go to the next one now. And you'll just have to keep trying in the next assignment. But I'll do 3 for each one. I think half of you only needed 2 tries. So I was like, yeah, you guys. Oh, it's rough on all of us. Okay, so all right, I'll see. I'm turning off the recording now.